NY Pizza Slice. The New York pizza slice costs $1 at the cheapest places and has maintained approximate price parity with the Subway fare for decades. When the Subway raised its price, pizza raised its price. The correlation is not coincidental and has been analyzed by economists as an informal inflation indicator. The slice itself, a large triangle of thin crust with tomato sauce and mozzarella, is folded lengthwise before eating to prevent the tip drooping and losing toppings. Tourists who do not fold the slice are identifiable immediately. Over 1 million pizza slices are sold in New York City every single day. The fold is not optional. Pastrami Sandwich. The New York pastrami sandwich is the product of Romanian Jewish immigration in the late 1800s. Pastrami is beef brisket, cured in spices for weeks, smoked, then steamed for hours until the fat renders completely into the meat. A proper New York deli pastrami sandwich contains nearly a pound of meat on rye bread, with mustard and nothing else. Adding mayo is considered an insult to the sandwich and to the deli. The combination of smoke, spice, and rendered fat produces a flavor that no other preparation of beef achieves. New York Jewish deli culture built its entire identity around this one sandwich, and the identity has outlasted most of the delis. NYC Hot Dog. The New York City street cart hot dog has been sold from aluminum carts since the 1860s when German immigrants introduced sausage carts to Lower Manhattan. The water the hot dogs sit in is called dirty water by locals and is considered by regulars to be part of the flavor. A dirty water dog from a cart costs under $3. The same hot dog costs $12 inside Madison Square Garden. The vendor on the corner outside MSG has been in the same spot for decades. Over 100 million hot dogs are sold from New York street carts every year. The most New York food experience costs less than a Subway fare. Chopped cheese. The chopped cheese was invented at a bodega called Blue Sky Deli on 116th Street in Harlem, though the exact origin date is disputed. Ground beef is chopped on a griddle with onions, lettuce, tomatoes, and American cheese, then stuffed into a hero roll. It is the Bronx and Harlem version of a cheesesteak without the Philadelphia name or the Philadelphia price. Food media discovered it around 2016 and declared it New York's secret sandwich. Harlem residents, who had been eating it for decades, responded to this discovery with varying degrees of patience. A bodega sandwich that never needed to be discovered became the most written about sandwich in New York. Bagel with lox. The New York bagel is boiled before baking, which creates the dense, chewy interior and shiny exterior that no other bread produces. New York water, which is unusually soft due to low mineral content, is credited by bakers for the specific texture that bagels made elsewhere cannot replicate. Bagel shops in other cities have installed New York water filtration systems to compensate. The lox and cream cheese combination arrived with Eastern European Jewish immigrants in the late 1800s and became the defining New York breakfast. A bread boiled before baking, topped with cured salmon and cream cheese, assembled in under 30 seconds, is the most New York thing that exists. Pink Donut. Simpsons premiered in 1989. Homer Simpson's donut was pink frosted with sprinkles in the opening credits of every single episode. Dunkin' and Krispy Kreme both reported measurable sales increases every time a donut-heavy episode aired. A cartoon character eating a donut for 35 years of television created more brand awareness for the pink frosted format than any advertising campaign in donut history. The strawberry frosted donut existed before The Simpsons. After The Simpsons, it became a cultural symbol recognizable in countries where neither Dunkin' nor Krispy Kreme operates. Homer did that for
Chicken
free.
over rice. The Halal Guys started as a hot dog cart on 53rd Street and 6th Avenue in 1990 before pivoting to halal chicken and rice when they noticed the Muslim cab drivers in the area had nowhere to eat. The white sauce, a proprietary blend of mayonnaise and other undisclosed ingredients, became the most analyzed condiment in New York street food history. Food scientists, home cooks, and culinary students have attempted to reverse engineer it for 3 decades without confirmed success. A cart that switched products to serve an underserved community built a franchise with locations in 40 states. The white sauce recipe remains unconfirmed.
New York Cheesecake. New York Cheesecake was invented by accident. In 1872, a New York dairy farmer trying to replicate French Neufchâtel cheese over-enriched his mixture with cream and produced something denser and richer than anything Europe had made.
By the 1900s, Jewish delis on the Lower East Side were serving thick slices on every counter in the city. The formula never changed: cream cheese, eggs, sugar, vanilla, and a graham cracker base. No water bath, no gelatin, no shortcuts. Every lighter cheesecake made anywhere in the world exists in apology for not being this one. Bacon, egg, and cheese. The bacon, egg, and cheese on a roll from a New York bodega is not a recipe. It is a cultural institution. The combination of scrambled egg, bacon, and American cheese on a Kaiser roll, assembled at 6 a.m. by someone who has made thousands of them, is irreproducible outside its natural habitat. New Yorkers who move to other cities consistently report that nobody else can make it correctly. The Bodega BEC is the food that New York transplants miss more than any pizza or bagel. A $4 breakfast sandwich assembled in under 2 minutes has more emotional weight for New Yorkers than most full meals anywhere else.
Mama's 2 Pizza. Mama's 2 on the Upper West Side serves a Detroit-style square slice in a city that considers rectangular pizza philosophically threatening. The thick focaccia-like base with caramelized cheese edges, sauce on top, and dense toppings produces a result that New York pizza traditionalists initially resisted and then started ordering anyway. Detroit pizza requires a different pan, a different baking temperature, and a different cheese distribution than New York style. Serving it on the same block as traditional New York slices requires confidence. Mama's 2 has the line to prove the confidence was justified. This Sushi Counter. Hand-roll bars became New York's most significant restaurant trend of the early 2020s. A single piece of nori wrapped around sushi rice and filling, eaten immediately before the seaweed loses its crispness, is a format that requires the customer to eat fast. Most New Yorkers consider this a feature rather than an inconvenience. The hand-roll bar format, standing at a counter eating rolls made directly in front of you within seconds of assembly, matched the pace of the city more accurately than any sit-down sushi restaurant. New York discovered a Japanese convenience store format and turned it into a dining destination. Minetta Tavern Black Label Burger. The Black Label Burger at Minetta Tavern in Greenwich Village costs significantly more than any reasonable person would pay for a burger and is worth every dollar to the people who have eaten one. Dry-aged beef blend, caramelized onions, served on a brioche bun with no substitutions accepted. Minetta Tavern opened in 1937. The Black Label Burger was added decades later and became the most written about burger in New York food media. A restaurant that survived for 70 years without the burger became defined by it. The burger that made Minetta Tavern famous arrived long after Minetta Tavern was already famous. Suka Sushi Push-Up. Suka Sushi opened on Lexington Avenue in Manhattan and immediately went viral on TikTok. The concept is simple: a sushi roll assembled inside a thick cardboard tube, pushed upward from the bottom to eat, with soy sauce delivered in a separate thin tube inserted through the bottom. The owners said the idea came from a common frustration. Sushi is great, but not always easy to eat on the move. Traditional Japanese sushi chefs have expressed reactions ranging from curiosity to visible distress. Suka Sushi was not trying to improve sushi. It was trying to make sushi impossible to scroll past on TikTok. It succeeded completely. Myka Greek frozen yogurt. Frozen yogurt arrived in New York as a health-conscious alternative to ice cream and immediately became its own obsession. The tart yogurt style that Pinkberry pioneered created a split between customers who wanted dessert to taste healthy and customers who wanted dessert to taste like dessert. New York's frozen yogurt culture developed a specificity around topping combinations and yogurt sourness levels that other cities never replicated at the same intensity. A Greek-style frozen yogurt shop in New York becomes a neighborhood institution within months if the product is consistent. The city evaluates frozen yogurt with the same seriousness it applies to everything else. Knish. The Knish arrived on the Lower East Side with Eastern European Jewish immigrants in the early 1900s. A dough pocket filled with mashed potato, kasha, or meat, baked or fried and sold from push carts for pennies. It was the original New York street food before hot dogs, pretzels, or pizza arrived. Yonah Schimmel's Knish Bakery on Houston Street opened in 1910 and is still operating. The menu has not changed significantly in over a century. A food that predates the New York pizza slice by decades has outlasted every food trend the city has produced. The Knish does not need to be rediscovered. It never went anywhere.
chocolate chip cookie. The New York bakery cookie is a different object from every other chocolate chip cookie in America. Thick, deliberately undercooked in the center, weighing over 6 ounces, requiring 2 hands to hold. The interior stays molten while the exterior browns. The size is not decorative, it is structural. A smaller cookie would cook through completely and lose what makes it worth the price. New York bakeries that perfected this format generated lines that wrapped around blocks before food media ever covered them. The most replicated bakery cookie recipe on the internet comes from a city that decided a cookie should be the size of a small meal.
Blank Street Matcha. Blank Street Coffee opened its first location in Williamsburg in 2020 during the pandemic and expanded to over 60 New York locations within 3 years using a micro-cafe format that required less space and less staff than traditional coffee shops. The matcha latte became their signature item in a city that had been drinking espresso for a century. Matcha went from a niche Japanese tea to a mainstream American cafe staple between 2015 and 2025. Blank Street accelerated this transition in New York by making matcha more accessible than espresso at competitive prices. A Japanese ceremonial tea became the defining drink of a generation of New Yorkers who were born after Starbucks opened. Cannoli. Cannoli arrived in New York's Little Italy with Sicilian immigrants in the late 1800s and have been made at Ferrara Bakery on Grand Street since 1892. The shells must be fried to order or they soften against the ricotta filling within hours. Every cannoli shop that pre-fills their shells is making a structural error that Sicilian bakers identified as unacceptable centuries ago. Little Italy has shrunk from a 40-block neighborhood to a few blocks of Mulberry Street as Italian-American residents dispersed across the city. The cannoli shops remain. Ferrara is still on Grand Street. The shells are still fried fresh. Some things in New York do not move. Cronut. The cronut was invented by French pastry chef Dominique Ansel at his Manhattan bakery on May 10, 2013. Within 2 days, there was a line around the block before opening. Within 2 weeks, scalpers were selling them for $40 each. Within a month, Ansel had trademarked the name in 27 countries. The cronut, this croissant dough that is laminated, proofed, fried in grapeseed oil at a specific temperature, filled, glazed, and sugared. The process takes 3 days. Ansel limits sales to 2 per customer. 12 years later, people still line up at 6 a.m. A pastry that takes 3 days to make created a line that has never fully disappeared. Black and white cookie. The black and white cookie is not a cookie. It is a small cake with fondant icing, half vanilla and half chocolate, that New York delis have sold since the early 1900s when German immigrant bakers introduced the format. Jerry Seinfeld dedicated an entire Seinfeld episode to the black and white cookie in 1994, describing it as a symbol of racial harmony. The episode made the cookie nationally recognized. New York delis that had been selling them without commentary for 80 years suddenly had tourists asking about the symbolism. A German immigrant's cake became a New York icon and a Seinfeld metaphor simultaneously. NYC Italian Ice. Italian ice has been sold from pushcarts in New York's Italian neighborhoods since the early 1900s when Southern Italian immigrants brought the granita tradition from Sicily and adapted it to the ingredients available in America. Lemon is the classic flavor. The texture, coarser than sorbet and icier than a slushie, is produced by scraping the frozen surface rather than churning it. Ralph's famous Italian Ices, founded in Staten Island in 1928, is the oldest continuously operating Italian ice business in New York. A Sicilian frozen dessert tradition brought by immigrants in the 1900s became a Staten Island institution that has outlasted every other dessert trend the city has produced.
Double smash burger. The smash burger technique changed American burger culture permanently. A ball of beef is placed on a screaming hot flat-top griddle and pressed hard with a spatula until it is almost paper thin. The Maillard reaction, the chemical process that creates browning and flavor, requires direct contact between protein and heat. More surface contact equals more crust, equals more flavor per bite than any thick patty can produce. The double smash stacks 2 thin smashed patties with American cheese melted between them. The cheese becomes part of the patty rather than a topping. This is not a burger with cheese on it. It is a cheese and beef system.